How you doing there? Welcome back to Babel on Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Daled, Daf 44 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends, your friends. This daf is awesome. We're starting Perek Hazav. I've only learned 2 daf of it. If you would have asked me like a few weeks ago, I feel like I would have been really nervous about it. I think I assumed that Perek Hazav just feels like it's like one of the hard ones. Ezu Neshech, I'm still very intimidated by, which is the next Perek. But let me tell you, Chevra, it's true. Hazav, I've learned like 2 daf of it so far. It's been slow. It's definitely been slow, but boy, it's good, man. It's great stuff. It's such good stuff. I feel like I've been waiting for this Perek my whole life. I can't get enough of BavaMetzia. I can't get enough of it. It is taking up like all of my time, but I can't get enough of BavaMetzia. I think I asked you yesterday if it's just me or is it blowing everybody's minds. I can't get enough of this. So we're going to start Perek Hazav, and it's really awesome. Why is it really awesome? Why is Perek Hazav really awesome? The reason why Perek Hazav is really awesome is because it talks about the stuff that I always wanted it to talk about. No, like I've always been wondering, like how does a kinyan work? I was always wondering about that. Like, how does a kinyan work? If metaltlin is not niknim bekesef, so how does a kinyan actually work? And okay, I've kind of figured it out. Like I've all this stuff that I'm about to be super excited about. Like I basically figured it out, not even on my own. Like we learned about, if I would ask somebody where does the Gemara talk about kinyanim? Oh, Kiddushin. That's what we talk about, right? Kiddushin is Ha'isha Niknes b'shalosh drachim, right? That whole thing, and kinyonim, and that's where it talks about nechasim sheish lemachayis. No, nechasim sheish lemachayis. What is that? Nechasim sheish lemachayis niknim nechasim she'en lemachayis niknim nechasim. Is that what it's called? Nechasim sheish lemachayis? Why am I like blanking it? Yeah, right. Nechasim she'en lemachayis niknim nechasim sheish lemachayis. I don't know. I'm like spacing out now. But and like kinyan chalifin has come up and stuff. But like, I feel like this is really where we're like telling you how this stuff works. I don't know. Maybe I'm just better positioned. I don't know. There's something about something bad about Perek Hazav, which is just like talking about the stuff that I was always like wanted to just like know about how it works, and it's come up in the past. Like Masechta Kiddushin, it does talk about kinyanim. It does talk about kinyane karka, right? And kesef, shtar, chazaka. But like, we haven't really got, or let's say this. In Masechta Kiddushin, they tell you like karka could be acquired with kesef, shtar, and chazaka. Okay, we've learned a lot about shtaris, that's true. But in terms of like kesef, how does a kinyan kesef like really work? Or what's a chazaka? Like I think that's going to come up in like Bava Basra. We're going to like get into that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, we talked about chazaka. It comes up. You put up some kind of a fence, or maybe dig in the field or something like that. But like, I feel like we can get more into the details of like really describing like what it is and not just in passing. Maybe that's what it is. I feel like, we've always talked about how these things like really work. It's like, yeah, we've talked about chazaka. But how does the chazaka really work? We've talked about, the metaltlin is not niknis bekesef. You need to be koneh be'agbar or b'meshicha. How does that actually work then? So when you actually go and buy a piece of pizza, how, from a technical standpoint, from a halachic standpoint, when you buy a piece of pizza, how does that work? So it's come up, okay, that it's so pizza cannot be niknes bekeser, has to be niknes b'meshicha. Okay, beseder. But here we're mamish going to talk about it. We're mamish getting into the details of how that works right now. Perek Hazav. Because of course, ever since we're like little kids, you go to the pizza shop, you can't eat the pizza until you pay for it. So the assumption is when you pay for it, that's when you own it. You give the money, now it's yours. No way, no how. Metalton isn't niknes bekesef. So then how does it exactly work? This is what we're getting into. How does a kinyan chalifin actually work? When a young fellow is getting married, or an old fellow for that matter is getting married, right? And the Masada Kedushin gives him a pen to pick up. Or how about this? Even better. It's about to be Pesach. You go to the rabbi of the shul. You say, "Hey, I want to sell my. I want you to sell my chametz for me." So he says, "Okay, so you have to transfer your chametz to me, and then I'll transfer it to and I'll sell it for you." So what does he do? He takes out a pen. He gives it to me. I pick it up, and now my chametz belongs to him. How does that work? So this is what we're learning about right now. Hazov kone es akesef, akesef eno kone es hazov. This is awesome. This is exactly what you want to know. Okay, hazov kone es akesef. Okay, you want to buy gold. You want to buy gold. So hazov kone. How does this dynamic work? You walk into the gold store, okay, and you say to the gold monger, you say, "I want to buy gold," and he says, "Okay, no problem. Gold costs, 100 silver coins." You say, "Okay, fine." You take out your wallet, you take out 100, you take out your bag of coins, you take 100 silver coins, and you give it to the gold monger. So how does this work? So hakesef, azov kones hakesef, that the kinyan is not happening with the 100 silver coins. It's happening, I don't like the exact 100 silver, but I feel like we have to make it meaningful. Okay, 100 silver coins. So the kinyan is not happening with 100 silver coins, saying hazov kone. It's happening with the gold. What happens is the gold monger gives you the gold. You then pick up the gold. When you pick up the gold, that's when the kinyan happens. It's yours now. Once you pick it up, it's yours now. You can't back out. The gold monger can't back out. The acquisition, the sale is over. Now, I can't just run out of the store because I have to pay for it. Once, okay, the kinyan has happened. Nobody can back out. But there's a financial part of, okay, once this kinyan happens, I now have to pay. I now need to pay you. I now need to pay the gold monger the silver coins to pay for it. Now we don't really talk so much about exactly how that works. I feel like it came up recently, like maybe it's like a loan or something. So now like I have a debt towards the gold monger and I have to, just like we have to pay debts, we have to pay, I have to pay the gold monger the money. But anyways, we don't really talk about exactly what my obligation is, but I have a chiyuv towards the gold monger that I have to now pay him the silver coins for it. Now the opposite is not true. If I were to first give the silver coins to the gold monger, and the gold monger picks it up, he hasn't acquired my silver coins. We could still back out. He could still say, "You know what, I don't want to sell you gold," or I could say, "You know what, I don't want the gold." The kinyan has not yet happened. We could still back out. Now, once I pay him, okay, fine. So we could still back out. He then gives me the gold, and I pick it up, and that's when the transaction, right there, that is when the kinyan happens. That's how it works. So azov kone es hakesef, that when you go to the gold store, so when the buyer picks up the gold, at that point the acquisition, the kinyan happens, and now the buyer has an obligation to pay the gold monger the amount of silver coins that he's obligated to pay the gold monger. Hakesef enu kone es hazov, but as I said, the opposite is not true. If I give the coins, the silver coins, to the gold monger and he picks it up, it doesn't do anything. I could still back out. He could still back out. It's only right. It's hazov kone. It's that only once the buyer picks up the gold, that's when the kinyan happens. Okay, now we're going to have a few similar examples. Anechoshes kone es hakesef. Similarly, if you're buying copper, so the copper, picking up the copper is what makes the kinyan, and then the obligation to pay the silver. Similarly, if the coppermonger picks up the silver, picks up the silver, he has not acquired it, you could still renege, still back out. Mos haros konus esayafos. Okay, so a transaction for bad money with good money, so it would be picking up the bad money that would make the kinyan, not the picking up of the good money. Vayafos enon konus esaros. Picking up the good money will not acquire the bad money. Asimon kones amatbeya. Also, an asimon is a coin that hasn't been stamped yet, right? So obviously, like if you think about a quarter, U.S. quarter dollar, so it's, I don't know what it's made of. I guess silver. I don't know what do they make those things of, but it's stamped, right? There's George Washington. George isn't a very biblical name. I guess none of those guys really had biblical names, did they? George Washington, Alexander Hamilton. I guess Alexander is kind of an old name. Thomas Jefferson. What's Thomas? Why didn't they have like Abraham Lincoln? Abraham is a biblical name. All right. So an asimon is just kind of like an unstamped coin. So it's not actually like currency. So that you would so picking that up would make the kinyan. I would make the kinyan and the chiyuv to pay the money. And picking up the coins would not make a kinyan in terms of the asimon. Metatlin konin esamatbeya. Piece of pizza, right? You pick up the piece of pizza. Now you own it and you have to pay for it. Matbeya eno konis hametatlin. But if you give, you pay for the pizza, you give it to the pizza monger. That doesn't make a difference. You can each renege. You don't own it yet until you pick up the pizza. Okay, fine. Gewaldig. Now. Kol hametaltalim konin ze es ze. All movable objects can be kone each other. Now, there's two ways that can happen. So, for example, if we talk about the chametz, like we mentioned earlier, so it could be a kinyan chalifin, right? So I have all this chametz in my house. I think the chametz in my house is primarily whiskey. I don't really have much other chametz. I think it's primarily whiskey. That's really the main thing that I sell. I think. So anyways, so whiskey. So I go to the rabbi, I say, hey, I want to sell my chametz. So he gives me his pen. Okay, he gives me his pen. I pick it up, and now my whiskey is transferred to him. So now my whiskey, mistame, it could be any pen, right? So my whiskey is worth a lot more than his pen, right? But it doesn't matter. What do we say? All metatlin can be kone each other, right? He picks up, I pick up, so he gives me a pen, I pick it up, now my whiskey belongs to him. Alternatively, I think truth is a more classic example that we've been talking about in terms of like in the Gemara that's come up with Reuven and Shimon, our classic characters. So Reuven has a cow, Shimon has a donkey. Okay, and they make a kinyan chalifin. Shimon goes to Reuven's house. He tugs on Reuven's cow, and when he pulls Reuven's cow and he's kone Reuven's cow b'meshicha, punkt, automatically at that time, Reuven now owns Shimon's ox. It's a barter. It's a barter. It's a swap. Okay. So Shimon pulls Reuven's cow, and he owns Reuven's cow because he pulled it. And punkt memele, Shimon's donkey now belongs to Reuven, even though it's in Shimon's house still. That's one way that metaltlin could be kone each other. Another way, though, is that they could sit down and say, look, the donkey's worth $100, the cow's worth $100, they're both worth $100. This is what we're going to do. Shimon goes to Reuven, right? This could be like like the gold monger, right? How did the gold monger work? Right? When somebody goes with a bag full of silver and he walks into the gold monger's shop and he says, I want to buy gold. So what did we say? The buyer picks up the gold. When he picks up the gold, he now has an obligation to pay the gold monger in silver. Now, it is not a kinyan chalifin. It is not that when the buyer picks up the gold, now the silver that's in his bag automatically belongs to the gold monger. No, it's not a kinyan chalifin. It's that when the buyer picks up the gold, he now owns the gold, and therefore he now needs to pay the gold monger. The gold monger does not own now the silver that is in the buyer's bag. The buyer has an obligation to pay that money to the gold monger, but the gold monger doesn't own it until he receives it. And therefore, we could say the same thing here by Reuven's cow and Shimon's donkey. One way to make the transaction would be a kinyan chalifin, that Shimon pulls on Reuven's cow and takes ownership of the cow, and by doing so, he swaps his donkey over to Reuven, and now Reuven immediately owns Shimon's donkey. But the other way to do it would be in the same way as with the gold and the silver, that Shimon is basically paying for Reuven's cow with his donkey. Right? Reuven's cow is $100, his donkey is $100. So Shimon is going to Reuven's house, and he is pulling on Reuven's cow, and by doing so he acquires Reuven's cow, and he says, okay, Reuven, now I need to pay you. Let me go get my donkey and I will pay you with that. Reuven does not yet own Shimon's donkey. Shimon, in this scenario, Shimon is going to now go and get his donkey and pay Reuven with that donkey, just like when the buyer picks up the gold monger doesn't yet own the silver. The buyer needs to pay that silver to the gold monger. So here also the other way to do it would be that Shimon first acquires Reuven's cow by pulling on it, then he goes and gets his donkey and pays Reuven with that donkey. And then and the difference is, at what point does Reuven own the donkey? If it's a kinyan chalifin, he owns it immediately when Reuven pulls the cow, when Shimon pulls the cow. If it is a Torah's domim, if it's just a regular sale, so then Shimon only owns the donkey. Reuven only owns the donkey when Shimon pays it to him. Okay. Fine. So that's called Metatman Konin Zeh. Now, Ketzad, going back to the gold monger. Moshach Peris Vilonosan Lo Mos. Okay. So the big distinction here is identifying what's the Paris and what's the Maos. What's the thing that's being sold and what is the thing that's serving as currency. With the gold and the silver, we're saying that the gold is the Paris, the gold is what is being purchased, and the silver is the Maos, the silver is what's paying for it as the currency. Okay, so we have to identify what's the Paris and what's the Maos. What's being acquired and what's the currency. So Ketzad Moshachimenu Paris V'lonosan lo Maus. If the buyer does a kinyan meshicha on what he's buying, on the Paris, v'lo nosan lo Maus, and yet no money has yet been given, been paid, enu yochol achzor bo. It doesn't matter. It's too late. The kinyan cannot be reneged because the buyer has already made a kinyan meshicha, and at this point the only thing left is that he has an obligation to pay for what he just purchased. Nosan lo mos v'lo moshach emenu peris. But if he gives the payment, he pays for it, but he has not yet done a kinyan meshicha, even though he's paid the money for it, yochol achzor bo, they can still renege. Either party can renege. Aval, but we would advise against it. Omru, they said, Mishapar me'anchador amabel umidora floge, that the one who paid retribution to or from, who punished the people in the generation of the flood and the generation of the Dora Floga, of the Migdal Bavel, Who also the pareya mimisheino omed b'diburo will also punish somebody who does not stick to their word. So meaning, even though yes, if he already pays for it, but has not yet done a kinyan meshicha, either party can still renege. But we advise against it. Once already money has been paid, even though technically speaking there hasn't yet been a kinyan, neither party at that point should renege. Reb Shimon Omer kol shakesef biyodo yodo al elyono, that whoever has the money is in the position of power. Right? We had just said a second ago that once money is transacted, right, even though money is transacted, technically speaking, either party can still renege. Reb Shimon says, no, the ball is in the seller's court, in the monger's court, that he could renege, but the buyer can no longer renege once he has paid. Says the Gemara, Masni le Rebbe the Reb Shimon Brei. So Rebbe was teaching his son Reb Shimon, Hazov kone es kesef, like we learned in our Mishnah, that Zov, Kones HaKesef, that gold is what's considered the Paris, and when you pick up the gold, then you own the gold, and you must now pay, you have an obligation to pay silver to the gold monger. Amle Rebbe, to its Reb Shimon says to his father, Rebbe, Shanisa Ladabi Aldusecha, but when you were younger, i.e. in the past you taught us, HaKesef kones azov, that it's fakirt, that actually in this dynamic between the goldmonger and the silver, it's actually punkt fakirt. You had taught us in the past that what happens is that actually the buyer would give the silver to the goldmonger. The goldmonger would pick up the silver, acquire the silver because the silver is considered the Paris, and he would then pay for the silver. He would then pay the buyer for the silver that he just acquired. He would then pay him with the gold. That gold is serving as the currency, and the silver is the Paris, is what's being acquired. But now you're teaching us, when you're older, fakert, hazov kones hakesef, that the buyer picks up the gold and makes a kinyan on the gold, and then he is obligated to pay the goldmonger with silver. Bi'alduse ma'asaver v'ziknuse ma'asaver. How come initially Rebbe assumed that the gold was the money and the silver was the Paris, and then when he got older he said fakert, it's the gold that's the Paris and the silver that's the money? Bi'alduse savar, when he was younger, he held daiva de choshev have tiva kaspa de lo choshev have pere v'kani le pere the tiva. Because when he was younger, he figured, look, whatever is the most valuable is the currency, is what you're going to pay with the most valuable thing. So whatever is the most valuable is considered the currency, and whatever is less valuable is considered what's being acquired, considered the fruits. And therefore, when he was younger, he figured when you walk into the gold store and you're acquiring gold, well, it's because the gold is more valuable than the silver. Actually, what's happening is that the gold is actually serving as the currency, and the silver is serving as the payers. So again, Bi'aduse Sovar, when he was younger, he held Daiva de Choshev, that gold, which is more significant, more valuable, Habetiva, that would be considered the money. Kasba de Loi Choshev, the silver, which is less valuable, Have Peir, would be considered the Peiris. Vikani Le, Peir Letiva, and you make a kinyan on the Peiris, and you make a kinyan on the silver, and by doing that, then the goldmonger who acquires the silver now needs to pay the buyer with the gold. B'zeknuse Sovar, but when he got older, he yelled, Kaspa de Chorif Have Tiva. No. When he got older, he determined actually, he held actually silver is, I don't know if ubiquitous, does ubiquitous make sense here? Silver basically is like universal. you could use silver anywhere. And because you can use silver anywhere, it is always considered the currency. And therefore, even though you're buying gold, which is more valuable than silver, the silver is going to be the payment, and the gold is going to be what's being acquired. Daiva de lo charif have a pere, and the gold, which is not universally accepted as currency, or is certainly not as widely used as currency. What does Rashi say? The charif yotze b'otzava over la socher. Anybody will accept it, right? I don't know if everybody will accept gold per se. I don't know, maybe, but silver, you can go anywhere and you can use silver, right? That's like the gold coins is not necessarily as readily available as kind of the regular currency. So silver is like the standard currency. Okay. V'kani le peiru letiva, and of course you make the kinyan on the peiris, which is then mechayev the money to be paid. Amar Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi ki alduse mistave. And Rav Ashi wants to argue that actually it makes more sense, like Rebbe had explained initially when he was younger, that it is the silver that's considered the peiris, and that the gold is considered the currency, because because the next thing in the Mishnah, we talk about copper. And we say that copper is considered the peiris, and the silver is considered the ma'os. So now, so let's read it inside. I think he does a good job explaining it. So again, Amar Rav Ashi, ki aldusim mistav, it makes more sense to say, like Rebbe explained initially, that silver is the fruits and gold is the currency. Because the very next thing in the Mishnah is that we talk about copper, and we say that copper is the fruits and silver is the currency. And now, so argues Rav Ashi, it makes sense if you say that silver relative to gold would be considered the peiris and the gold would be considered the currency. So I'm just looking at, whatever, let's go weiter. That's why we then, in addition to talking about the dynamic between silver and gold, we then talk about the dynamic between copper and silver. And we say that copper is considered the fruit relative to the silver, which is considered the money. Because even though in the dynamic between silver and gold, silver would be considered the fruits and gold would be considered the money, however, with regard to copper, the silver would be considered currency, however, relative to the copper. So relative to the gold, it's considered the peiris, but relative to the copper, it's considered ma'os, money. But if you say that silver is considered currency even relative to gold, and that gold would be considered the peiris, and silver would be considered the ma'os, the money, well then hashti legabe daiva dechoshev minei omart tiva have. Well then, I don't understand why we need to teach in the Mishnah both about gold and about copper. If relative to gold, which is more valuable than silver, silver is considered the currency and gold is considered the peiris. Well, legabi nechoshes, the iu choshev, the iu charif. Well then certainly relative to copper, where not only is the silver more valuable than the copper, but there's also this fact that it's universal. Mibaya, that it goes without saying that silver would be the currency in that dynamic. Wow, my brain is turning to mush. That means that it's good. My brain turns to mush when things are good, but it means that I got to get into turbo mode. I got to get into push through the mush mode, which I can do now, or at least I'm determined to do it. Like at this point, it's happened enough. It took about 4 years until Bava Kama to learn about pushing through the mushing, and but now it's something that okay, I just got to flip on turbo mode and push through the mush. So therefore, so that is the kasha, right? So Rav Asher wants to argue that it would make sense to say that in the silver-gold dynamic, silver is considered the peiros. That's why we have to teach about gold and copper, because the gold-silver dynamic is that silver is the peiros, but the copper-silver dynamic is that silver is the currency. But if you say that silver is the currency both relative to gold and to copper, well then, if I know that even though gold is more valuable than silver, silver is still considered the currency and gold is considered the peiros, well then obviously relative to copper, where not only is silver more expensive, but it is also of course universally accepted, certainly then silver would be the currency. Why do I need to teach about copper? So itzrich, we still nonetheless do need to teach about copper, because sakadaitech amino, I would have thought to say hane prite, that actually when it comes, I don't know what I just said. I still need to teach about the copper, because I may have thought to say that these copper coins, be'asu desagye inu charife tve mikaspa, that places where they do use copper coins, that is what they use. Sure, you can use dollars. What? You can use silver. I mean, whatever. We can get to dollars in a second. But yeah, sure, you can use silver anywhere. Just like you can basically use dollars, right? There's dollars all over the world, right? Right? They found in the safes in the tunnels in Gaza, the leadership over there, they had safes filled with shekels, but also $100 bills. Dollars are like all over the place. Everybody has dollars. But still, you go out, if I walk outside, I can't really pay with dollars. I mean, everyone will, dollars are all over the place, but still, around here, people are paying with shekels, So therefore, I might think that since in a place where they use copper is what they use, sure, silver's all over the place, but in places where they use copper, that is primarily what they use. So I may have thought that copper would be considered to be the currency relative to silver. Where am I? So kamash malo. So where am I? So I might think that copper would be considered the currency. Kamash malon. Since not every place accepts copper, therefore, even relative to copper, silver would be considered the currency, and copper would be considered the peiros. Okay. Fine. Okay. Fine. Ve'af Reb Chia savar daiva tiva have. Now Reb Chia apparently held that gold would be considered the money, right? Money. That gold would be considered money. That gold would be considered money. How do we know that gold would be considered money? The Rav, because Reb Chia's nephew Rav, Ozev Dinre Mibarta de Reb Chia, borrowed money from Reb Chia's daughter from his first cousin. Dinre, right, gold coins. Rav borrowed gold coins from his first cousin. The Sof Iker Dinre, and then the value of gold coins increased. So also the comment to Reb Chia. So Rav came to Reb Chia to figure out if he could pay back his first cousin, or if he's going to run into trouble with interest. So now here's the thing. So when it comes to, and I imagine it's going to come up in Ezu Neshech, okay, so I can't apparently. I think we're probably going to understand this concept better soon, but I can't lend you, a container of, a kilo of wheat, loan you a kilo of wheat or whatever, or lend you a kilo of wheat, and say, pay me back in a year a kilo of wheat. I can't do that, because wheat is peiros, and peiros can fluctuate in value, and the wheat, if in a year from now wheat is twice as expensive, when you pay me back that same kilo of wheat, you're paying me back twice the value that I gave you, and that's an issue of interest. That does not apply, however, to money. If I lend you 100 silver coins, and I say in a year from now pay me back 100 silver coins, so you pay me back 100 silver coins, because money we don't worry about it that in the same way. 100 coins. If you lend 100 coins, you pay back 100 coins. So therefore, so Rav borrowed 5. Does it say 5? I don't know if it says 5. But he borrowed gold coins from his first cousin, and then the value of gold coins went up. So the shayla is, if they're considered like peiros, then we have to be concerned about interest. If they're considered like money, so you don't have to be concerned about interest. He just pays her back whatever he borrowed. So the comment to Reb Chia, so he comes to Reb Chia Amarle, and Reb Chia tells Rav, Zil Shalem La Tavin Utkilin, no problem, just pay her back. Good weighty coins. I think the point is just pay her back. If you borrowed 5 gold coins, just pay her back 5 gold coins. It's no problem of interest. They're not considered peiros, they're considered money. So exactly, if we say that gold is considered money, so givaldi. He borrowed, say, 5 gold coins. He pays her back 5 gold coins. The fact that gold has, the value of gold coins has increased, doesn't matter, it's not interest. But if you say that gold is considered like peiros, well, then it would be like he's borrowing a saw of wheat and being asked to return a saw of wheat. But in that case, if the value of wheat goes up, then it would be a problem. So from the fact that Rav pays her back with the same amount of coins that he borrowed, it must be that gold coins are considered money. So the Gemara says not necessarily. Did I say silver? Gold coins, right? So now the Gemara says not necessarily. You could say that gold coins are considered peiros. Okay, so then how come Rav was able to borrow 5 gold coins and pay back 5 gold coins, even though they went up in value and they're considered peiros? Rav dinrei havule, because Rav actually had the money. He borrowed 5 gold coins, but he did have 5 gold coins at the time, he just didn't have access to them. And since he had those coins, those gold coins, it's like he said to her, it's more like, if somebody says, lend me, it's like even in the context of wheat, he says, lend me a saw of wheat, I have a saw of wheat, just I need to wait for my son to come back, or I need to find the key, but I have it. So then it becomes more of like a chalifin, right? He's saying, look, can you give me, a saw of wheat? I have the wheat, I just need to find the key or whatever. So then when he receives that saw of wheat, so then the lender basically immediately takes ownership of the saw of wheat that the borrower has, that apparently he's just looking for the key. So here also Rav had the money, so you could say that the gold is considered like peiros, but the reason why he was allowed to borrow, say, 5 gold coins and return 5 gold coins, even though the value of gold coins increased, is because at the time that he borrowed them, even though they're considered peiros, at the time that he borrowed them, he had 5 coins. So Memele, when he received the 5 coins, his 5 coins then belonged to her. So by the time they increased in value, they're already in her possession. Okay, so we don't necessarily prove that gold is considered money. They could be considered peiros. Okay, fine. Woo, sheesh. This is like not a long daf, but it requires a lot of koiches. Omar Rove, says Rove, Haitana Sovar Daiva Tiva Have, that the following Tana holds that money, that gold is considered money, not fruits. Here we go. The Tana is within the Brisa, Pruta she amru, Pruta, right? Like right? That kiddushin is with a shava pruta, right? So pruta she'amru echod mishmona be'isar italki, 1/8 of an Italian iser. L'may nafkamina. What's a nafkamina? The kiddusha isha. For a kesef kiddushin, we have to know the value of a pruta. It's 1/8 of an Italian iser. Iser echod me'esim va'arba b'din reish al kesef, and in iser is 1/24 of, right, 24 isers in one silver dinar. L'may nafkamina. What's the difference? L'mekach u'memker. For business, pashut. If something costs a certain amount of dinar of isers, so we have to know, the value of isers relative to silver dinars. Now, dinar shel kesef echad me'esim v'chamisha b'dinar shel zav, and a silver dinar is 1/25 of a gold dinar. There are 25 silver dinars in one gold dinar. The my nafkamine. What's the nafkamine? The pigeon aben, for the redemption of a firstborn. Oh my gosh, this is, I'm a little bit nervous to do this shtickle with a blown out mind, with a brain that is mush. But, cheve, there is no choice but to push through the mush. There's like Albert Einstein stuff over here. Relativity. He omad b'shloma tiva have mishaer tana b'midi de kitz elo I omart pere have mishaer tana b'midi de oker v'zil zimne de mahadu le kahana v'zimne de mosef le iu le kahana elo shmamina tiva have shmamina. Okay, brain, just push through the mush. So we say that there are 25, I hope I get this right. We say that there are 25 silver dinars in one gold dinar. And we say, what's the difference for pidyon aben? That is because pidyon aben, the value for pidyon aben is 4/5 of a golden dinar. So now if there are 25 silver dinars in one golden dinar, so then 4/5 of a golden dinar is 20 silver dinars. Okay, fine. 20 silver dinars. Givaldik. Now, we want to say that from the fact that we have this cheshbon, that the amount of that the value of pidyon aben is 4/5 of a gold dinar. Well, it must mean that the gold dinar is money, is considered constant, right? We say Paris, their value fluctuates. But something that's considered kesef, money, is most does not fluctuate, right? As we just said, I can't borrow a kilo or a saw of wheat and be expected to return a saw of wheat because the price can fluctuate. It might be interest. But in terms of maos, I can borrow 100 coins and return 100 coins. So now, from the fact that we're saying that by pidyon aben, the value of pidyon aben is 4/5 of a gold dinar, it must be that the gold dinar is considered constant, that the value of the gold is considered constant, and that gold is considered money, is considered constant, is considered money. How come? How does it teach that? Because it teaches that because if we assume that the gold is the constant, so that you have gold and you have silver. Those are two separate, things. And their value can fluctuate relative to one another. So it's like Einstein's theory of relativity. Which one is the constant, which one's fluctuating? Is it that the silver is becoming more and less expensive relative to the gold, which is saying constant? Or is it that the gold is getting more or less expensive relative to the silver, which is constant? So we want to say that from the fact that pidyon aben is 4/5 of a gold dinar, it must be that the gold is what is constant, which means that say the value of silver increases, so that instead of it being 25 silver dinars to one gold dinar, it's only 20 silver dinars to each gold dinar. That 20 silver dinars can buy you one gold dinar. So if that's the case, well then, what is the pidyon aben? Pidyon aben is 4/5 of 20 silver coins, which is 16 silver coins, and that is what you give to the coin, right? So if you say, right? It's always going to be 4/5 of 1 golden dinar. So you take a look at 1 golden dinar, you say, well, now there's 20 silver dinars to 1 gold dinar. So 4/5 of that would be 16. So you give 16 to the coin. If the value of silver becomes less, so that now it's 30 silver dinars to 1 golden dinar, so you would give 4/5 of that, which would be 24. Sorry, my brain is mush. Sorry, normally I should be able to divide 30 by some number. Sorry, my brain is mush. 30 by 5, which would be 6 times 4 is 24. Okay. Fine. So now that's if you say that that the golden dinar is the constant and that it is the silver that's fluctuating. Now, if I understand correctly, what the problem with saying it the other way around, which is that that it's actually the gold that's fluctuating and it's the silver that is constant. Well, then I think that the issue there would be I think, if I understand correctly, the issue there would be the following. I think the point is that people would end up making a mistake and they would do everything relative to the gold, right? Which means that, meaning if the reality is that it's actually the gold that is fluctuating, right? So that when it's 20 dinars to 1 gold coin, it's not that the dinars got stronger, it's that the gold got weaker. So then here's the deal. So what would end up happening, so I think that this is pshat, that what would end up happening is you would still end up doing 4/5 of, right, from like 1 gold coin. So what you would do is, right, if you say that it's the gold that's changing, so you might still say, well, okay, relative to gold, it's right now silver is 20 to 1, right? It's 20 silver coins for 1 gold coin. And you would say, well, if that's the case, so 20 silver coins for 1 gold coin, so then 4/5 of that would be 16. So you would give that to the coin. You would give 16 silver coins to the coin. The problem is that actually it's not the silver that changed though, it's the gold that changed, which really means that if it's 20 silver dinars to 1, so basically the point is that it's at the dinars, it's what's the constant. So 20 is not what you want to be giving, 16 is not what you want to be giving, it's always going to be 20. So 20, so meaning relative, at this point, relative, if Albert Einstein, so relative to 1 gold coin, it would be 16 silver coins. But the point is that it's not the silver that's fluctuating, it's the gold that's fluctuating. So you still have to give 20 silver coins, which would be relative to, I think, 1.25 gold coins, which means that what would end up happening is you would end up, the father would give the Kohen 16, but the thing is that we're saying that the 20 silver coins is what's constant and it's the gold that fluctuates. So 16, you still have to give 20 coins, but I think the point is that because you were thinking relative to the 1 gold coin, you would end up giving 16, but then you would have to end up giving more because it really needs to be 20. And if the value of silver was such so that it's 30, so silver is weaker, so that it's 30 silver coins to 1 gold coin, so then you would end up giving 4/5 of that would be 24, and you would end up giving 24 coins to the Kohen. But again, it's because it was you were thinking relative to the gold, but it's not relative to the gold. It's actually relative to the silver. It's that the gold is relative to the silver. So you'd end up giving 24, but the truth is that the silver is a constant, so the coin would have to give back 4. So you basically have if you say that the gold is what fluctuates, so you'll end up having a scenario where the father, if the gold is weaker, so then the father is going to have to end up giving more silver coins, and if the gold is stronger, then the Kohen's going to have to end up giving back silver coins. So rather, it makes more sense to say that it's the gold that's constant, and it's the silver that's fluctuating relative to the gold. Now you make the cheshbon based on one gold coin is how many silver coins, and you'll take 4/5 of that, and then that is how you do pidyon haben. I hope that maybe made. First of all, I hope I got it right. I think I got it most. So I feel like the right thing is somewhere in all that babbling that I just did. Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. Oh my gosh. I'm happy that we started with the beginning of the parak today, halfway through. This was, Hazav is great, but it's a lot of effort. Okay, so let's just read that inside, right? So we might have community of the pidyon haben. If we say that gold is considered the currency, well then the gold is the constant, and mishar tana b'midi the kitz. We're saying that pidyon haben is 4/5 of one gold coin. One gold coin is a constant, so we're saying that it's 4/5 relative to a constant, relative to a golden constant. But if we say that gold is considered a fruit, right? So which means that it could fluctuate relative to the silver. So then Tana Mishar Tana b'mida the oker v'zil. Then he's then we're evaluating with something which could go up and down. Zimnin de mahader le kahana v'zimnin de mosef le, because sometimes, if you make the cheshbon relative to the gold coin, well then you might end up sometimes the father would give too little, and he would have to actually end up giving more. Other times he would give too much, and the kohen would have to give back, right? Sometimes the kohen would have to give back, and sometimes the father would have to give more the kahana. Rather, it must be that the gold is constant, and the silver is relative to that. Holy shnikes. Wow. Wow. That ended up being a long daf, and we only kind of did like an amud. That's crazy. Chevra, I still have to record. It's Friday afternoon. I still have to record one more, but I'm not recording another whole one. A, because we don't have time. I don't have time, and B, because I ran out of time even reviewing all of it. But I'm going to get started on the next one, which is also, it's not easy stuff. But Chevra, we started today Perek Hazav, which is awesome. We talked about kinyanim, how acquiring metaltalin actually works. Right? At what point is it the kinyan? Then we talked about relativity, Albert Einstein. We talked about kinyan chalif in a shtickle. It's pretty awesome stuff. All right, catch you later. Peace out.